Warning, the following video has spoilers. Okay, let's talk about this damn Death Note movie. So, before we start talking about anything, just want to have a heart-to-heart with me and the viewers, you guys. The books and anime do not fucking matter in this video. None of the established Death Note lore fucking matters in this video. We're talking about the movie and the movie alone. It's the same thing that we said in our video about movie and game adaptations and why they suck. This movie should not be judged based on the existing lore. It should be judged based on how it stands alone.
Like you said, you can't necessarily take away entirely from what it is. So it's not like we're going to completely ignore it, but we are going to more judge the movie as a movie.
Holy shit.
Ooh, that was a good headshot by that guy.
That was me, that guy. Okay, so just score out of 10. How would you give me a score out of 10?
8.
Okay, so we have an 8 from Wyatt. For me, it was like a 7. C, high C, C+ movie for me. The main problem I had with it was pacing. I think the pacing was horrible. Like, the pacing wasn't bad. The pacing was, like, actually horrible.
That was everybody's major complaint, was it moved too fast. And I admit, it did.
Yeah.
The part A of the movie was incredibly fast-moving.
Yes. I was a fan of the fact that he gets the Death Note. Light gets the Death Note within the first, like, 3 minutes of the movie. Like, it wastes no time getting you there, but from that point on, the pacing is really bad. I think Mia's characterization was really confusing. I did not know what her motives were, and I get that that's kind of the point, but, like, I seriously had no idea what she wanted or how she felt about anything, especially in the Ferris wheel scene. When it got back to the Ferris wheel scene, I was like, what the hell is even going on with Mia right now? Before I take a shit on Ryuk as a character in this movie, I'm just gonna suck Willem Dafoe's dick for a couple seconds, because he was awesome. Willem Dafoe was absolutely perfect as Ryuk. I'm not talking about the script itself or the characterization of Ryuk as a character. His
performance.
Just the performance alone of Willem Dafoe was A+. But I was not really a fan of Ryuk as a character. I saw a review that was like, it said something along the lines of, they didn't need to give Ryuk an agenda, but they felt the need to. And I couldn't agree more with that. Because Ryuk, the whole thing about Ryuk as a character, and I know I just said I'm not going to be referencing the books, but what I'm doing right now is I'm just referencing the manga and the anime, just like so you can kind of see this. The thing about Ryuk is that he has no agenda. He's legitimately just bored. He's just bored. He wants to see what happens when he gives someone this kind of power. But what happened in the movie was he wanted to give someone that power so he could, like, somehow get it back for himself and do all this gobbledygook, and what it did was it ended up creating plot holes. The movie definitely, it never plainly says it, but it definitely suggests that he uses the book from time to time. That Ryuk actually writes entries in the book from time to time.
Because he threatened to kill Light that way.
Because he threatened to kill Light that one time, and even though the mass suicide that you think was him the whole time actually was Mia, or at least I think that's what happened. The ending of the movie is really confusing.
Yeah, it's convoluted.
Yeah, the end that, which goes back to the whole pacing thing. But the movie definitely suggests that Ryuk wants the book to himself and wants to use the book for his own good. But what that does, it just ends up creating plot holes, because it's like, why couldn't he have done that before? Ryuk's motivations are all over the place, and the reason, and like, the fact that they changed Ryuk's motivations from the anime and manga to the movie ends up just creating plot holes with the rules of the Death Note, is my point. The fact that they gave Ryuk motivation and they gave Ryuk, like, evil intentions, it actually fucks with the rules of the Death Note as presented in the movie.
I watched the scene of his introduction from cartoon, and I actually enjoyed the introduction in the movie far more because it makes more sense.
I loved Ryuk's first couple scenes in the movie. I loved his introduction, and I loved that second scene in the bedroom. We're not trying to compare the movie to the cartoon or to the manga, but there are bits. The way that the character Ryuk works just The way that Ryuk is as a character, just the nature of him as a character, just doesn't work with the changes that they made. They tried to keep parts of him from the manga and anime, but then change other parts of him. But what happened there was the parts of his original characterization no longer worked because you changed certain parts of it. In the manga and anime, I'm willing to say he's like a perfectly written character. Like, I think he's he's one of the most perfectly written and perfectly designed characters in all of fiction, because he's just ambiguous. He's bored. He's someone with all this power, but he doesn't use it. He's evil by design, but that doesn't mean his intentions are always bad. He's evil by design, and he's an evil person, but he's not always doing evil. He's just someone that's bored. I remember you and me, Wyatt, were talking about this, and I compared him to Venom from Spider-Man. Someone who's evil by design, but that doesn't make him a villain. But what they did in the movies, they made him more like a villain. And they kind of, I think one of the main things that turned me off to the movie was the fact that it seemed like everyone was a bad guy in this movie. It didn't feel like there were any real heroes in this movie, which sometimes works in a movie, like in a story like Chicago, which is one of my all-time favorite musicals and all-time favorite movies. There are no heroes in that, and for that it works. But I feel like in this movie, the whole no one is good approach didn't really do anything for me, because I found myself not really caring what happened to anyone. Well, it seems like I'm just taking a shit on the movie, but just like, I want to get my criticisms out of the way first before I start sucking this movie's dick, because there's a lot of awesome shit about this movie too. I think those were my only real criticisms of the movies. The pacing and the characterization of Mia and Ryuk being kind of all over the place. Some people criticize the change from Light to make Light more of a loner and more of someone with good intentions rather than a sociopath. A lot of people criticize those changes made to Light. I didn't see a problem with that. I can understand that if you're someone who loves Light as a character in the manga and the anime, that you wouldn't like those changes. But to me, as a movie standpoint, just as a movie standpoint, I think those changes worked in the movie. I think Light's fucking stupid, and I think one of my main problems with the ending of the movie is the fact that he all of a sudden becomes not stupid. Light is really, really stupid. The whole fact that he even gets caught is because he's stupid. There's so many inconsistencies with Light's intelligence. The dude literally flat out says, "Oh, like Kira means light in whatever fucking language, I forget. But it means death in other ones, so it'll confuse people to think we're like working out of Japan." And the introduction of L is that he says, "Oh, the name is a misdirection." It's like, yeah, no shit, it's a misdirection. Why did you feel the need to make your killer name your actual name? Do something stupid. Call yourself like Dickhole Man or something. And then also my other main problem with Light's intelligence is that he's never portrayed to be this super smart guy, even though people say he's super smart. Like Elle sometimes mentions that he's super smart, and his dad sometimes mentions he's super smart. We never see that. We never see him being really smart until the very end of this movie, where he conducts this massive, huge Ant-Man style like hit, and it's just like, I didn't feel like the Light that we had been presented with would have conducted that.
I was happy to see the arc, though, that he did actually learn with his interactions from L.
He did, yeah. No, we definitely saw Light learn. Absolutely. I think Light's character arc was really interesting. I just think the massive detailed killing and the end of the movie, it didn't really fit the Light that we had been presented with. It seemed above him. We were told multiple times throughout the movie that Light is really smart, but it's just we never really saw that. The whole movie we're told that Light is really smart, but we're shown him being really dumb. We've been shitting on the pacing, but like I said, I can't say enough good things about the pacing of like the opening 10 to 20 minutes. The opening 10 to 20 minutes of this movie are like everything you could want from a movie trying to condense years and years and years of backstory into an hour and a half. It did it perfectly. It wastes no time in getting him the Death Note. It wastes no time in introducing Ryuk and laying out what the Death Note is capable of.
Is the first time when Ryuk tells him to watch, I was about losing it.
Oh, I was not expecting that at all. That first death, I was not expecting it to be that gnarly.
Here's one thing I'll say in terms of me going into it on a better high note, was the creators gave this movie a thumbs up.
Yes, that should be like made very plain. That the creators of Death Note gave the movie a thumbs up. I saw someone say this movie was basically like Final Destination book edition, and I was like, you know what?
To some extent,
that's totally
you're
accurate.
not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's not like that's a bad thing either, because I mean, if we're being honest, that's kind of what Death Note is. Death Note kind of is a very Final Destination style of story. But I mean, I guess that's my point, is the people saying that it's like Final Destination, you're not wrong, but that's also not a bad thing, because Final Destination is fucking awesome too. I really liked L.
Like, he's not some crazy mastermind, and they didn't really go down that path, but I'm hoping with a sequel, you might. Because the way it ends is, like I said earlier, it's an open-ended book, and I want more. I really do.
The way I like it ends very unclear. I like that they managed to throw in an explanation as to why L is that smart.
Yeah, I liked his backstory. A lot of people kind of gave that a bad rap too. They were like, that wasn't needed, but I'm like, no, but it
was needed. When you have someone that fucking smart, you need some kind of explanation. When you have someone who's like leagues and leagues above the intelligence of other people in the story, you need some kind of backstory for that. And I think they handled it pretty well. But let's talk about the ending. I don't think L used the Death Note. I think when Ryuk appears in the hospital, that's not because he's gonna kill him. That's just because it's Ryuk being around the Death Note and being a taunty asshole. I don't think L writ his name in the Death Note because L is above that. Despite the fact that we kind of see L start to kind of lose his stability in the end of the movie, I don't think he went that far.
Because remember, Mia already threatened him with it earlier in the movie.
Oh! There's two lines in the movie that kind of contradict each other. One of the rules is that, what was it? It was like, any part of the page has the power of a whole page. But then it said if a page burns, you can only save one name. But then Mia was writing a whole bunch of people's names in the Death Note in one page. Also, keep in mind that she ripped out a page, was writing a whole bunch of names on it. She writes Light's name in a page that's still in the book. It's not on the page that she ripped out and was using. She wrote Light's name in the book. But then how could that have possibly been part of her plan? The last time she could have possibly written Light's name in the book, more than 2 days go by before that actually takes effect. That was my biggest, like, inconsistency, I think, between the ripped page and the Mia's final plan to get the book back. More than 2 days, if I'm not mistaken, more than 2 days go by between Mia writing the name down and the actual plan taking place.
Well, that's also in terms of pacing.
Granted, I could be wrong with that. I could have just, like, misconstrued that, but I'm pretty sure that more than 2 days go by, which creates some inconsistencies between how much power the book has compared to what a page has, and also just you just start getting into plot holes like that. But also oh my god. But also, I think that's just a side effect of trying to, like you said, or like we've been saying, try to mush down years and years of lore and all these countless rules of the Death Note that took years and years to actually make sense into an hour-and-a-half movie. It's just, the point is, there's no possible way to actually put to actually put all of the rules of the Death Note into that hour-and-a-half movie, but they kind of took advantage of that and intentionally didn't really explain all the rules. So when it comes to the ending, there's a lot of things that it's a mix of the pacing and the fact that the Death Note still hasn't been fully explained.
I will say, in terms of one of the rules that I wish it's in the books and the show, but not in the movie, and that is, if you touch the book by any means, you can then see Ryuk.
Yeah, I actually remember that.
That isn't a thing.
That's not a thing. The whole thing about Ryuk is that he just doesn't care what happens. And like I don't know why I'm not sure why they felt the need to change him. Even with the characters that they cut out for the movie and with the time constraints, they still could have done it. They still could have make Light the protagonist, as they did, make Mia the surprise enemy, and make L the lasting antagonist, make Mia the surprise enemy at the end. They didn't really need to make Ryuk the enemy here, but they felt the need to make Ryuk the antagonist, which I wasn't a fan of. Because not only because it didn't work, but also because there was really no need to do that. Ryuk works better when he's just there. That's kind of who he is.
And he's way more intriguing.
Yeah, he's more intriguing when you don't know what his motivations are, because he literally has no motivations. He's just bored.
And that's
he
why
wants
he's
to be
one of
entertained.
my favorite characters.
Yeah, that's part of the reason.
He's one of my favorite characters.
That's part of the reason I think he's such a genius character, is because he's a main character with no motivation. He just wants to see what happens if he takes this great power that he has and doesn't use it. You never see that. You never see a character in fiction who has an insane amount of power, like the possession of this book that kills anyone and can control people's minds. And it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to sit back and see what happens if I let someone else do it. I just wish they explored that more. And the thing is now, is like, even if we do get a second Death Note movie, we're going to get this version of Ryuk, and I don't feel like I want that.
No, but at the same time, his final line of like, you humans are so interesting. Like, I think that's him finally realizing, oh, the game's still going, but now I don't need to have a say in it anymore. Like, it's kind of like he laid the groundwork in terms of the movieverse. I'm just gonna let you do your little dance, and I want to watch because I'm bored.
That's true. That could have, if that's the case, I'll take back everything I said in the second movie. If that's the case, if they use that last line to set up him no longer being a part of it,
or like rather not necessarily being a part of it, but just being like we were saying, like just the side character.
Yeah, not being a part of it, but still just being there and being a watcher, being an observer.
Being a part of the being in the audience.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about Ryuk. Like, yeah, he's not part of the story. He's part of the audience.
I watched the first live action one of Death Note they made from Japan, and
that one's
Ryuk looked like he would in the cartoon.
Yeah, the first live action Death Note Ryuk was like a picture perfect recreation of the manga,
which was good, but at the same time, it didn't translate well with live action because
exactly. It looks cheesy. It looks cheesy. Despite him being perfect, you can't keep one aspect of a cartoon cartoony while making the rest of it realistic. It just doesn't work. I like that they made Ryuk more of a realistic being in this one.
He looks so freaking, like when he shows up, I was just like, oh my gosh.
He's scary. I love it.
And my favorite scene of all time with him is in the bed when he first starts talking to him, because like Light realizes like there's something here with me, and he like puts the apple down and he's like waiting for it, and then you see like the hand go for it.
Yeah.
And then it rolls out, and then like he's looking at it like, oh my gosh, and then out of nowhere you see him goes, hey kid, and he's like super just mellow about it, just like, what's up?
Yeah, I love that scene. I love the scene with Ryuk in Light's bedroom, just sitting on his bed. It's like, hey, what's up? You want to hang out?
And he's just like, that's cool. He's like, this is my name, by the way, not whatever you said.
It's like, oh yeah, you pronounced my name wrong, but don't worry about it. Let's hang out. Let's kill some people. Let's play Smash.
It's like there's tiny little bits that just make it so much better.
The first couple scenes with Light and Ryuk were so good. I just wish they kept that vibe with them the whole time, or at least we got more of that before they kind of switch things around with the tone. I wish we got more of the Ryuk and Light hanging out together
at the beginning
before they made Ryuk the villain, because Ryuk does become the villain. I just wish we got more of him not being a villain before he becomes the villain, because like for the first half of the movie, Ryuk is that spectator that we were talking about. He is just hanging out. He just wants to see what happens. But I feel like the switch where his motivations come in, I feel like that came too quick.
And then on top of that, the fact that he shows Mia the book so fast, and she's just like, oh, okay, I totally believe you, and like, I'll totally watch this.
Oh, yeah. When Light shows Mia the book, I was like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, first of all, have you never talked to a girl before? You're like, hey, cute girl, talk to me. Want to see this book about how I kill people in masses? He shows Mia the book right off the bat, and she believes him without skipping a beat. That was the first major case of like, okay, the pacing in this movie is bad. Also, plot hole in that movie, I think this was more of an editing mistake, but when he shows Mia the book and he says flip to the last entry is Kenny, but the last entry should have been the killer, because at the time that he shows Mia the book, he's killed 2 people, meaning that the second person should have been the last entry in the Death Note. But when he says flip to the last entry is the first kill, not the second kill. But again, I feel like that was more of an editing mistake. I don't feel like that's actually something that's like really bad. But then it's one of those things that it's like, I get that you're trying to condense this massive story down to an hour and a half, and there's going to be some corners you have to cut. But then also at the same time, we said at the beginning of the movie, we're judging on a movie alone, and the movie has terrible, terrible pacing.
Like you said, the first half when he first gets it and he meets everybody and then he does all of that at the beginning is good, but then when it kind of falls when he meets Mia. That is literally the biggest fault line with it.
Everything is actually really well paced up until we meet Mia.
And then it just kind of it goes down the crapper really bad.
The first 10 minutes of this movie is like picture perfect.
Brilliant.
How to condense a whole bunch of story into 10 minutes and do it well. The first 10 minutes of this movie are how to do that well. Everything after the first 10 minutes of this movie is how not to do it.
Another thing that I really liked, though, was the fact that when he finally made his appearance known as a killer, and, like, these things are all connected, was that they did like the montage, and the montage was really, really good, because it was, like, you got that sense of, like, this isn't just one day, this is, like, weeks and months of him
This is a long time me killing a lot of people.
It went Western, and with the Western look, it did good for the Western look, like, truthfully.
As a story...
Like, they didn't shy away from things.
As a story about the Death Note, it does its job. As a like you said, but as a retelling of the story that you already know, it doesn't do its job.
No.
But then, like I said, that wasn't its job.
No.
People docking this movie because it's not a recreation of the anime or of the manga. Stop. That wasn't the point of this movie. You can criticize it for not being a good movie or not being a well-made movie, because it's not a well-made movie, but it's still enjoyable.
But it's a fun ride.
It's a great ride of a movie. I really liked the story. I didn't like Ryuk's characterization, and I didn't like the pacing, and I didn't like Mia's characterization, but the story itself, I really liked. I thought this was a really good Death Note story.
You have to just go in, if you're wanting, like, a crime thriller mixed with some supernatural elements, it's definitely up there just for going to watch.
It is more of a crime thriller than anything. Yeah.
The guy who directed this movie, his next movie is Godzilla vs. King Kong.
Oh yeah, that actually makes me excited for that movie.
And the fact that he saw this and was like, I want to make this a thing. I'm like, just enjoy the fact that we even had it. If anything, if it had a bigger, like a longer runtime, I don't think pacing would have been much of an issue.
Yeah, if this movie was longer than an hour and 40 minutes, if it was like even if it was like 2 hours, but like I was like, if it was like a full like 2 hour, 15 minute like superhero length movie, I feel like that's kind of like 2 hours and 15 minutes, kind of like the standard for superhero movies. Even if it had that, I don't think pacing would have been a problem. But I feel like I definitely feel like they were constrained down to an hour and a half. Like I feel like they were making the movie, and then halfway through making the movie, Netflix was like, oh yeah, by the way, this thing has to be under 2 hours. But it's like a Final Destination high school crime thriller. If that sounds fun to you, go watch it. Honestly, it's only an hour and a half long. I still recommend watching it. It's not even that, like, if you like a certain thing, I would recommend it. I recommend watching this movie, period. I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's like you said, it's a fun movie. It's not a good movie, it's a fun movie, though. It's definitely an interesting movie, and I like what it sets up for the future.